Welcome back to Rewind of the Living Dead. I'm Damon Martin.
And I'm resident paleontologist, Dr. Patrick Guerra.
Yes, Patrick. And tonight, it's funny. We've done movies that kind of skirt the line between horror and sci-fi. And, we did Disclosure Day. We were kind of in a slow period. And we're like, you know what? Let's just do it. And, it didn't really qualify as horror, but we just said, oh, let's just do it anyways. The End of Oak Street is what we're doing tonight. And it kind of concerned me because I was like, it looks like a thriller, kind of adventure, sci-fi, kind of like family film. But I gotta say, like, it does tinge in horror. So, like, I don't feel bad about reviewing this movie at all. So, yes, tonight, Patrick, we're reviewing The End of Oak Street.
Surprise, surprise, motherfuckers. It's kind of a horror movie. It turns out. End of Oak Street, of course, released in August of 2026, starring the likes of Jordan Alexa Davis as Jeanette, PJ Byrne as Mel, Christian Convery as Brian, Maisie Stella as Audrey, Ewan McGregor as Greg Platt, and Anne Hathaway stars as Denise Platt. Written and directed by David Robert Mitchell, the Platt family bands together to navigate their new surroundings after a cosmic event transports their suburban neighborhood to someplace unknown. And unless you live under a rock, Damon, you know exactly where they went. They went to some crazy ass place with fucking ravenous dinosaurs. Damon, the End of Oak Street is here on Rewind of the Living Dead, and I think it's legitimately, I would call it an adventure horror movie, but a horror movie nonetheless.
I've seen a lot of people comparing this and saying, like, this is an homage to the great Amblin films, Amblin Entertainment films, which were a lot of, Steven Spielberg produced. I just pulled up the Amblin Entertainment, like, filmography because I was like, I couldn't think of all the movies, but, like, just to name a few. Gremlins, The Goonies, Back to the Future, Land Before Time, Who Framed Roger Rabbit, Jurassic Park, Twister, Men in Black. Like, that's the Amblin Entertainment, like, series of films. And I think people were absolutely right to compare it to that. Like, it does feel like that. It's that kind of fun, like, harrowing but family adventure film. Because, like, if you can rewatch Goonies, and there's definitely some, like, crazy parts in there when, like, you're literally watching
Oh
gangsters
yeah.
starting to murder children. And, Gremlins gets pretty crazy too. Like, you literally watch the Gremlins, like, feed a guy to a freaking wood chipper or whatever that is. So, like, they're not just straight up, like, kids movies or anything like that. But this movie takes place in 1982, so it kind of makes sense. But I honestly didn't totally know what to expect. And for those who don't remember, for those who don't know or just didn't pick up on it, David Robert Mitchell is the guy who wrote and directed It Follows, which is a legit horror film, and obviously they're doing the sequel right now. They Follow with the great Micah Monroe, and this is him writing and directing this, which is a complete departure from It Follows. I know you're not a fan of It Follows, but this is a complete
Not.
departure from that.
It's nothing like that. It's a big adventure movie. It really just felt like a big studio movie, and it's from WB. And you're right. It does have a very Amblin tone to it. I did the unthinkable, Damon. I watched one trailer before I saw this movie because it was just kind of everywhere, and it was the trailer I think most people have seen that just gives you the basic idea, which is like, why is our neighborhood not where it used to be, and why are there now dinosaurs roaming around it, and we are going to fucking run and hide because these dinosaurs are going dinosaur, to quote the great Chris Rock. Yeah, the trailer is kind of light and fun, and you understand the premise very, very easily from it, and I think the movie 100% delivers on that premise, but it did a great job of disguising what the actual tone of this movie was going to be. And as we said right in the opening, we're very pleasantly surprised to say we weren't really stretching it this week. This is a horror movie. Like we've talked about, I think in the horror circles in general that Jurassic Park is a horror movie if you really look at it. It has a cold open kill. It has scary, large tooth monsters chasing people in the night and killing them on screen, like 100%. Like you're like, yeah, this is a horror movie, but tonally it allows for everyone to kind of join in the fun. It's not so scary and so bloody that you can't take your kids to go see it. And for me, it's one of the biggest and most important like memories in my movie going life is going to see that movie when I was a kid, when it first came out, and just going, oh my God, there's dinosaurs on screen and some of them are trying to eat us. And it's great and it's harrowing and it's interesting. This is tonally in a very same in a very similar place with a bit of a, I guess, an edgier twist, and not by much really. I do think it's trying to emulate a lot of those movies that you rifled off, almost to a fault, in my opinion. And I think of another director, I think of Ty West, who we've talked about on this show multiple times, and sometimes he really nails it. I think he nailed it with X. I think he nailed it with Pearl. And I think we were not too excited about Maxine. We didn't really love what happened with Maxine. And that's because Ty West said, I'm going to make an 80s thriller uncompromising. That sounds great on paper, but when you realize that Ty West was like, no, no, like literally like how they were, where like half the movie is very uninteresting and nothing happens because that's what they did in the 80s, and I'm going to copy that to a T. I feel like David Robert Mitchell sort of did that here. And because I can't really get into the things that bug me about this movie because that's really spoiler territory. But character choices, I think, were made because he's like, well, in the 80s, they would have done that. And I go, yeah, in the 80s, they would have done that. And in the 80s, there was a lot less that you could actually put on screen. Clearly, if you watched one trailer of this movie, you see they go all out and you're running from dinosaurs and you have these big fantastical things. But I think those movies were much more character focused because they couldn't run from giant dinosaurs. They couldn't run from giant monsters on screen. Most of it had to be implied in the character and why they made the choices. And a lot of filmmakers like Ty West and apparently like David Robert Mitchell, and even somebody like Quentin Tarantino, who I know you love, they go, no, this is how we did it. In Death Proof, we're going to waste the whole middle of the movie. And I'm not going to apologize about that because all my favorite movies from the late 70s and early 80s did that. And I'm going to do that. And it's like, but there's a reason you update those things. There's a reason you make them slightly more sophisticated because the audience is slightly more sophisticated. They can handle the setting. You have a great production designer, you have great costumers and hair and makeup people that transport you back to the 70s, and it does. This movie really looks great. It really has a throwback to the late 70s, early 80s. But you don't need the characters to behave like they're from a 70s or 80s movie. You can make them behave in a slightly more sophisticated manner because your audience is more sophisticated. So that certain questions don't arise. We'll get to that in spoilers, where you go, wow, that's just, there's no modern character that would do that. And that can potentially take you out of a movie.
I'll disagree to this point. If you do it correctly, and you add a
If.
layer of, if you do it correctly and you add a layer of authenticity to it, like not to, I mean, yes, I'm going to defend my boy Quentin Tarantino, but like when you watch that and you say, well, he's going to make it authentic to Crazy Mary, Dirty Larry, Vanishing Point, movies he talks about in his movie. Yeah, that's what they do. And Tarantino is such a sophisticated, smart filmmaker, he can do it. Now I know you don't like that movie, but I personally love it, and it's because there's so many other layers in that movie before we get to like the crazy terror part of it, kind of building up to that. But that's also like when you watch those classic car chase movies from the 70s, that's kind of what they do. Like they don't, the entire 90-minute movie isn't just car chases. You would have nothing else to watch in that
Mhm.
movie. So when you do it right, I think you can pull it off. And also, while I understand the idea of making it more sophisticated, more intelligent, like modern characters wouldn't do that, if you pull it off the right way and do it authentically and make it not just look like 1982 but make them behave like it's 1982, you will get a section of the audience if they start pulling off modern. If they're playing it like the characters are from 2026, but they're set in 1982, there's also going to be a sect of the audience is going to say this is bullshit. They would have done that in 1982. We weren't.
Yeah, no, that's not what I'm saying at all. No, no, I'm saying that like you do have to make the characters more sophisticated, not more modern. Those are
But
two different arguments.
but I think for the most part, this movie feels pretty authentic to the era. And by the way, this movie's like an hour and 35 minutes. It's breezy, very breezy, which I appreciated because my one fear when I saw the first trailer for this, and like I said, I try not to watch trailers. I think this was shown before another movie, and to me it looked a little cartoonish when I saw the trailer. I was like, oh, this looks a little like too kiddie in a way. Like they're going to make it an
Right.
action adventure movie, but it's going to be a little too kiddie. But to their credit, like it's a very breezy, fast movie, and it doesn't feel overly long, and it doesn't feel like they cut things out. which I appreciated because there's so many movies we've watched, and I won't name names, but go back and listen to the episodes where I'm like, they could have edited out 20, 30 minutes of this. And I feel like this is a movie that absolutely positively could have been 2 hours, 2.5 hours, and we would have been leaving the theater going, oh God, they really need to edit this movie. But they did. Hour and 35 minutes, breezy, out the door. That's why I'm like, I don't really have a huge issue with anything in that regard. And credit to David Robert Mitchell for making a fun adventure thriller that actually has real horror elements, and the characters are interesting enough to keep me hooked. You know, the family, we're basically following one family this entire time, but as we mentioned, the Platt family. And I think everyone in the film is interesting enough to keep me on the hook. They're interesting enough to whether I care whether they live or die, which I've talked about a million times on the show. If you can't give me a reason to care whether your characters live or die, then you've messed up. If you're doing a movie like that, you've messed up. I actually care and like the characters. So I disagree in that sense if you do it right. Now I know you're going to say, well, you don't think he did it right, but me personally, I think it was
Correct.
I think it was. I thought it was authentic to that era and authentic to those characters and authentic to the story that was taking place. But that's just my opinion. Like I said, I know you disagree, but I think that's what it didn't bother me at all. And also because it didn't get overbloated. It didn't get bogged down in details at the halfway point. Like just like why did this? The premise of the movie is this neighborhood gets basically taken back in time to prehistoric times and dinosaurs are there. Why? Well, I don't really care why. Give me the adventure part of it, and they didn't do
Yeah,
that.
we don't need the why.
They didn't ruin it by saying, well, now we got to figure out why. Why did this happen? How do we reverse it? All this kind of stuff. They're just like, it happened. We're going to deal with it, and now we got to figure out how to save ourselves. Cool with me. I don't need to know anything more than that. And I thought they did a good job of displaying that. And I can't say enough about the time, man. I know it sounds like a weird compliment, but like making this a 95-minute movie was the smartest choice they made for this movie.
Did you by chance over the weekend see The Last House on Netflix?
I did not.
It's over 2.5 hours long. And it's, by the way, not dissimilar. It's a different premise completely. And I won't spoil it for people. And it's kind of been going around. Everybody's been talking about it. I watched it and it's like, I feel much better about this movie than I do about The Last House. But there's similar problems, except that movie is an hour longer. Oh, that's punishing. That is really punishing when it's an hour longer and you're also frustrated with character choices and you're also frustrated not just character choices, you're frustrated with like director choices, like what they've done and stuff like that, and you add an extra hour of a movie to it. This movie is an hour shorter. It gives you what you want. I mean, I have by the way, if I'm not making it clear, I had fun with this movie. I actually really enjoyed this movie. There's actually a lot of great laughs in it. There's proper stakes in it. Like there's a lot of things that it does right. It's just like there's some fundamental things that really remind me of a Ty West or Quentin Tarantino, where it's like, you really didn't have to do it exactly that way. I know that's how they did it then, but they had limitations then that you don't have now, and it feels unnatural in this moment. That's my point. And those things to me stuck out like a sore thumb, and specifically, without spoiling anything, it has to do with the children in the movie. I think what was so amazing about Amblin movies is how they were written from the perspective of young people really, really well. Like shockingly well for people who were adults that were writing them. Although you look at Steven Spielberg at the time, he was in his 20s and early 30s. He was actually doing a great job writing young people. But like there's plenty of examples of like much older writers of the time who really understood kids and really made the kids make sense, because they are impulsive and they are stupid at times and they do stuff like that. But you can go too far and that can be distracting. It's not that it's like that makes no sense. It's like, well, now you're pulling me out of the story because this story's got me. Like you said, breezy, sharp 90 minutes, bang, bang, bang. There was this point where I didn't remember how long the movie was when I sat down to watch it. And I was like, I sure hope the movie doesn't keep doing this, which is that there is one scene where they kind of try to explain what's going on. They sit around, the daughter's really into like science. So she makes a educated guess on what's going on. And I was like, I'll give you this moment, but please don't keep doing this shit because Last House was doing that. Like Last House was doing that in a bad, bad way. Again, they had a whole extra hour of a movie, so that was a problem. But they didn't. They actually solved that right away. They went like, yeah, of course. In an 80s movie, you'd say, well, I read one time in a science book, or Mr. So-and-so at school says, that's fine. That part works for me. But then there's stuff where it's like, oh, like it they made that choice in the 80s because they had to establish the character in a certain way, and they didn't have these incredible action sequences to do this. Now you have the incredible action sequences to do this, so make your character make a little bit more sense, slightly a bit more sense. Not all of it doesn't have to be perfect, but you can't be dogged about, nope, that's how they did it back then, so we're gonna do it like that again. Ty West is a great example of that. But most of his movies, I feel, actually. But overall, this movie is thrilling. It's got scares. It's got blood, guts, and gore for a PG-13 movie. It has them. It has cool creature design. I will say, and maybe you agree with me here, Damon. Some of the CG in this movie is kind of spotty, and I was like,
Yes.
oh, that's in it. And before the AI controversy comes up, not to bring up Ice Cream Man, a movie this size, it was $85 million, has probably been working for about 2 years. So the AI technology when they started this thing was not up to snuff, and you would see right through it. I think this is CG for the most part. If there is some AI in there, I didn't
Well,
see
and
it.
just to answer the question, because I did research this because I heard about that, the AI was in the marketing campaign. They did not use
That
AI in the
part's
movie.
totally different. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I saw the AI in the marketing. That's a totally different department. And when people
yeah.
get up
But
in
I
arms and they go, "Why would David Robert Mitchell do that?" He doesn't get a say. The marketing department does that.
yeah.
That's
So
Warner Brothers, and they own AI companies. They're going to use the AI that they paid $100 million for. Trust me,
yeah. So
he
I
has
did I
nothing
did
to do
the
with that.
I did the research though. From my understanding, there was no AI made in this movie. It was CGI, digital effects, obviously,
Yeah,
but like no AI in the actual movie. Just to answer that question.
yeah, and some of the CG was spotty, and I was like, okay, that's a little rough for this movie, but overall, a thrilling, fun, funny movie that had me rooting for the characters to win. I think this is my favorite David Robert Mitchell movie. It's not saying a lot. I really don't like It Follows, and I hate Under the Silver Lake even harder. But of those three movies that I have seen of his, this one is by far and away my favorite of his.
You mentioned thrilling, and I think that's a great kind of segue to what I wanted to say, which was I was surprisingly impressed with how harrowing this movie was.
Yes.
And you listen, you know the concept. I'm not ruining anything by telling you this. It's a lot of characters running from dinosaurs. You know what I mean? Like there's not a whole lot of like, they're not doing like kung fu moves on dinosaurs. You're not out there, battling, not gonna razzle a dinosaur. You're gonna run and you may have to try to hit one or shoot one or whatever, but you're just basically trying to get the fuck away. And I knew this was PG-13, and my opinion on PG-13 horror films. You have to pull off The Ring to really like impress me with like a PG-13 horror film. Now, to be
Yeah.
fair, this isn't just a straight up horror film. Obviously, there's a family film element, there's a kids film element, there's a lot of different things in there. But I was like pleasantly surprised, where I was like kind of not to say edge of my seat, but kind of edge of my seat, where I was watching this like, oh God, are you gonna like what? And like there I'm not ruining it, like, just to be honest about this, and I'm not gonna ruin like who has it happen or what happened. People don't make it. And
A
like
very important element. Yes.
you mentioned how Jurassic Park is very much like, deep down it's a horror film. It's like watching the lawyer, hide in the bathroom, and the dinosaur literally bites him and pulls him up, and you literally watch the dinosaur swallow the freaking lawyer. I remember I
Hmm.
saw a movie as a drive-in as a kid, and I was like, "Holy shit!" I was like, they actually showed it. Um, that's kind of what this is. Like, they're like people in this movie don't make it. Like, they show flat out like deaths in this movie, which was again surprising because like you can push the envelope in a PG-13 a lot more, PG-13 movie a lot more than we probably suspect these days. But I was just like, okay, they're gonna have some, like, you're gonna see a dinosaur go after a person, and you're just gonna assume they died or who assume they get caught.
Right.
No, they flat out show you they got caught, and I was super impressed by that, which to me raised the stakes, because then when the dinosaurs are chasing and going after our lead characters, I was in a mindset of like they could die. You know,
Hmm.
no one was safe, which I appreciated because you know there's so many movies out there. You know, it's like we talked about. I know it's a weird comparison, but we talked about this with Scream. Scream has gotten so predictable that you know Nev Campbell, you know Sidney Prescott's never going to die, and we're like that kind of ruins it. Not saying I want her to die, but the fact that you just know she's going to make it kind of ruins it because you're just like, yeah, she's made it through 7 movies now. I highly doubt they're just going to rub her out unless Nev Campbell's literally like, I'm not doing these anymore. You got 1 movie left. You better kill me off, which maybe that'll happen. But it kind of ruins the movie. And like I said, when they killed, I'm sorry I'm ruining a movie that's been out for like 6 years now or 7 years. When they killed Dewey in Scream 5 or Scream, whatever it's called, the entire Scream world was like, oh my God, I can't believe you did that. How could you possibly do that? And I'm like, that's the point. It's a
Yeah,
horror
you have to do
film.
it eventually.
Yeah, like I just recently rewatched Friday the 13th Part 2, which you know is one of my favorites. And like they rev out the main character from the first one right away, and then they introduce you to Jenny. She gets rubbed out right away going into, you know what I mean? Like that was kind of the theme of those movies. You didn't really survive beyond one movie in Friday the 13th. But when you just know people are going to make it, it kind of, you know, you're like, oh, okay, well, you know, I like everyone else around you can die, but nobody in the lead family is going to die. This movie does a really proper job of setting it up to the point where you're like, you know what? Maybe they're not all going to make it.
Yes, I think of Attack the Block, which like I'm not dogging this movie. I'm just saying Attack the Block is a much better movie, but
It is.
this is still a good movie. But Attack the Block is like very, very good. What's amazing is those are young kids. There's not even really any adults. They kind of play the background of the movie. And then some of those kids get violently murdered by aliens. And you're like, oh, fuck. Oh, shit. Like, this is like real stakes. And the real stakes keep you invested in the movie. This movie does that. I'm not spoiling anything here. I'm just telling you that, like, people you don't expect to die are going to die, and you're like, "Wow, that's fucked up." That's a majorly it was a point of discussion with me and my wife because my 9-year-old wants to see this movie, and I'm like, I think he's not going to like this part where this thing happens. I think it's going to upset him because, but also like I kind of remember that from the my youth seeing movies where I was like, wait a minute, so and so dies. That's insane. Like that person's like part of a big part of the story. You need that every now and then. I applaud this movie for doing it. But there's something in spoilers that I will keep till spoilers that kind of pisses me off about that. But I don't want to bring it up yet because it is a spoiler discussion.
But I will say overall, and we'll get to spoilers here in just a second, but overall, I know what this movie is. And it
Mm-hmm.
actually still exceeded my expectations because when it
Yes.
started, and when I knew when I figured out right away what it was, you know, it was an homage to those Amblin films of the 80s, and it was going to be, I was like, this is ultimately playing like a family film with harrowing sequences and an original story. This is all, you know, David Robert Mitchell. I was impressed that they went as far as they did. And then, yeah, I think I know exactly what you're talking about with like what
Hmm.
happens, and we'll get
I
into
know you
spoilers.
know.
But even then, I was kind of like, you know what, like we talked about this with I can't remember what movie we were reviewing, and I said like, you know, we love a good dour, you know, depressing ending. And
Hmm.
I said there's sometimes movies are set up where it's like they feel like we were talking about the Speak No Evil remake, and I like you got to give them the happy ending. I was like, no, the fuck you don't. Don't give us the happy ending. That
Yeah.
movie's not made to be a happy ending. The
Yeah, they
original
really
is so
fucked
much
up that
better.
movie.
There are some movies though where you're like, not only do I want a happy ending, I kind of need it because it's that kind of movie. That's what this movie is, and I also understood that going in. You know what I mean? Because like this is ultimately a family film, and you can take your kids to it. But like when you're talking about your 9-year-old, like I don't know for sure if I could take him. I think that's what they're kind of thinking too. Like we want to get
Hmm.
everybody in the theater for this one. And by the way, I'm fine with that. If you make a
Oh
good
yeah.
movie that's PG-13 and you're like, we need a happy ending or we need a satisfying ending that doesn't involve the entire family being eaten by a Tyrannosaurus Rex. I'd be like, cool. You know, man, I get it. For this movie, I get it. So I know what you're talking about. We'll talk about in just a second the actual spoiler part of it. But I was like, you know what? I get it. And like I said, I grew up on these. Like I grew up on Gremlins and Goonies and those kind of movies, and I still love them to this day. And I think they did a pretty good job overall of like making that kind of movie, but making it with modern actors, Ewan McGregor and Anne Hathaway, and yeah. So like I said, overall, I really enjoyed this one for what it was. It's fun, and about, as much as I love Martyrs and I watched The Mist the other night. It's like God, this movie's just so good. The ending, oh my God.
Perfect movie.
Yeah, it's like one of the greatest movies ever made, one of the greatest endings ever, maybe the best ending ever.
I think it's the best ending ever.
But I don't need that. Where like the dinosaurs rip into the house and Anne Hathaway grabs a gun and she's like, starts shooting her family. I don't need that in this movie.
That would be awesome. No, I know what you mean though. Like it is there's a hopefulness. I just think that, and we'll get into it in spoilers. I just think in that hopefulness, they should have gone another route because what they actually imply is completely fucked up. So yeah, it's time, Damon. I think it's time to get into spoilers.
Yeah, so let's get End of Oak Street is in theaters right now. Like I said, I think you both tell we both enjoyed it. Like it's worth seeing.
Yeah.
It's worth seeing it.
Go see it in the theater.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's dinosaurs. Listen, are the effects a little wonky at moments? Sure, but overall, I thought it looked good. It was fun. Go see it in the theater. You need a big screen for a movie like this. This is like a classic summer blockbuster kind of movie. Go see it in theaters. And with that being said, if you want early access to this episode or any episode, patreon.com/rewind of the living dead. We just put up our first Deep Cuts podcast for Kill List. If you haven't seen Kill List, it's on Shudder right now. You need to see that movie. That movie is so whacked out and wild and crazy and good. We just did a full review of that only for Patreon, so check that out. But you also get early access to these episodes. You also get bonus episodes, all kinds of cool stuff. Patreon.com/rewind of the living dead. $5 a month. Support your boys. With that being said, Patrick, we're now going to get into full spoilers. So if you haven't seen The End of Oak Street, be forewarned. So Patrick, I mean the premise is pretty simple with this one. Like literally, it's just a family and they get transported back. Their entire neighborhood, like 2 Mile neighborhood, gets transported back to prehistoric times, and dinosaurs are just like roaming the neighborhood, attacking people. It doesn't need to be more complicated than that.
It really isn't more complicated than that, which is what frustrates me about this movie because the way David Robert Mitchell writes the kids, I think he thought he was doing an 80s thing there. Instead, he made them too stupid. And goes back to like Barbarian. Barbarian, my wife can't even watch because she's like, I know that in the 80s, women were this dumb in horror movies. It's now literally just insulting to watch it on screen. Like in a modern movie, that Barbarian could have been set in the 80s, but you don't make a woman as stupid as the woman is at the beginning of Barbarian. It literally will just rip you out of the movie. So this family is transported to Dinosaur Town, and the kids are still like in some way, shape, and form being angsty young children and doing shit that has nothing to do with the dinosaurs. And it creates complications. That's why it's there. It's not like I don't understand the function of it. And so the daughter Audrey is I just wasn't a fan of how he shaped her, as she's completely manic and off the rails. But I have an older sister. She was kind of like that when she was 16 years old. And then they have a younger son who I'm guessing is about 13 years old, and he's being bullied before they transport over, and he's being bullied in dinosaur world. And I was like, on what planet does that make sense anymore? And that scene, all right, I'm kind of bouncing all over because really you said it, Damon. The movie is just about them running from dinosaurs and trying to find a way back home. That's the big thing. And they discover there's like a wormhole that kind of pulses in and out. And if they jump through it at the right time, they can go back to what they believe could be their world. We'll get to that in a minute. But I just want to talk about the bullying scene here. So in the regular world, Brian got into a fight with some kid, pushed him off his bike or something, and the kid broke his arm. And now he's kind of running from the kid's older brother, who is a bully. And they're like, oh shit, we got to hide from the older brother and his friends who are going to kick my ass because I broke his little brother's arm. And then everybody gets transported to Dinosaur Town. Everybody is running for their lives. It is well established at this point that people are being eaten, the dinosaurs are hunting them day and night. And at one point, he's running to go find his dog, which he is overly fixated on. I get it. I get it. I wouldn't want my dog, but also if dinosaurs are chasing after me, sorry, dog. I'm just trying not to be eaten by giant toothed dinosaurs. But he runs off to go get his dog and he runs into the bully. And the bully tries to kill him in the middle of all this. And I'm like, please make that make sense. Help me out, Damon. You seem to have grasped onto the movie better than this. That scene comes and goes, and I have no idea why it's in the movie.
It doesn't make sense why it's in there. And what's funny is the older brother starts kicking his ass, and his younger brother's like, "What are you doing? What are you doing? We gotta go. Why are you beating him up?" Basically, the little brother who got his arm broken is basically speaking for all of us. Like, why are you doing this now? Like, what the fuck is the point of this? And
Yeah,
by the way, I don't know if you caught it by the end of the movie when they're running, trying to get out there. Both the bully and his brother are dead. I don't know if you saw that. There's like a
I
flash.
missed it. Yeah.
There's like a flash of him on the ground laying there dead. The dinosaurs got him, obviously. Yeah, it was just weird. Like it was why is this in here? Like we didn't really need conclusion on that. We really didn't need like to satisfy that story from the beginning of the movie to where he's being bullied, and now in Dinosaur Land he's still being bullied. It was weird.
And in that moment, right when he bumps into the brother, it felt like in an Amblin movie, it would feel like the bully brother and the younger brother bump into him, and they're like, "Oh fuck, it's you, Brian, you little shit." Like, why are you still alive, or something like that? And then they team up and work together. That's
Yeah.
an Amblin movie where it's like, we're gonna settle our differences right here because there's bigger fish to fry right now. Kids have done that in Amblin movies time and time and time
But
again.
to their credit though, the scene lasts like 45 seconds. It's not a long drawn out scene.
Which made it feel pointless because when the kid is like, "Hey, stop it! You're gonna kill him," the kid just goes, "Yeah, you're right. Sorry," and then he runs off, and I was like, "Why did we do this scene? I don't know
Yeah.
why we did it." And in a breezy movie, I shouldn't have even felt that scene. That scene
It's
should have come
just
and gone. It was just
completely
such a weird scene to inject in there.
completely pointless, but because they didn't drag it out and like I thought like, oh my god, they're gonna have a
Sure.
conversation about this or something, like why are you beating me up or whatever. I apologize, whatever. They didn't go that far. They're like, why am I doing this? He runs off. I'm like, why didn't we just edit this out? What point did this make? But like I said, it
Right.
doesn't I can understand the complaint, but to me it didn't bother me that much because it lasted 45 seconds. I was like, why is this in here?
Yeah.
But whatever. And to your point, by the way, I'm going to argue with you on this.
Please.
I have two dogs. I will lay down in traffic for my animal.
I understand.
If I see my dog and I see the fucking T-Rex, I will step right in front of my dog and say, "Come on, motherfucker, let's go." I will sacrifice my life for my dog. Not saying you're bad for saying otherwise, but I'm saying like when the kids are especially the boy Brian is like obsessed with finding his dog Starbuck, which by the way they had their dog outside at night, which I think is cruel. You should never keep your dogs outside. Always let them in the house. I think it's cruel when you leave them outside.
Especially at night.
Yeah, but whatever. It was the '80s. I know a lot of people did that in the '80s.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But I understood that. Like weirdly, I like that was like very simplistic. Like I want to find my dog. But I understand that because, like, I adore my two dogs, and if you fuck with my dogs, I'm not joking. I'll go to prison. I got no problem with that. You fuck with my dogs, I will ruin your life, and I'll gladly go to jail. I have no problem with that. But that's like I said, everyone's different. So I understood the motivation of the kid who loved his dog and he wanted to find his dog, and you know, there's a moment where the dog does come back, but then a dinosaur starts chasing the dog, and he runs off, and so the little boy like runs after him. I get it. I get it. In that moment, like you'd be scared to death for your dog. And like I said, I would do the exact. So you're not wrong in your thinking, but for me personally, I understood it. And so I'm like, dude, go after the dog. I would do the exact same thing and probably more.
Yeah, I mean, I understood its function. I was like, oh, this is how they're going to complicate the situation because otherwise they just stay holed up in the house because that's the smart thing to do. Why on earth would you do anything other than that? Right?
Yeah.
Like, so they had to find a way to complicate him out. The other thing, the one thing, and help me out with this, Damon, because again, I think you picked up on this movie in a different way than I did. Audrey has a scene while they're still in the house where she goes to the garage and plays a song and sings it, and that's it. And I was like, what? like what is this doing other than just giving us a needle drop in the movie?
I think part. I mean, I don't know this for certain.
Yeah,
I
I mean,
just think part of it
I'd
is
like
like
to know how you look at that. How do you interpret it?
some sense of normalcy. You know what I mean? Like she just wants to like
Yeah,
escape for a minute, escape for 3 minutes, listen to the
sure.
song. Because when this happens, obviously they get transported back in time. Electricity's off. Everything's off. There's no you're not you can still drive. 'Cause you got a gas vehicle, but like there's no electricity. She has her like Walkman with batteries and headphones and stuff. I would just imagine it's just a few minutes of normalcy in that moment. You know what I mean? Like she's just trying to
Yeah.
remember what it was like. Because again, you're in a completely like whacked out situation. No one would like most people think they're probably like high on acid or something to think they're being taken back in time and being stalked by dinosaurs. So I think it was just her attempt at like some sort of normalcy. Because remember, Audrey is a science kid. She idolizes Carl Sagan. You know what I mean? You watch at the end of the movie, there's like a
Yeah.
photo with her and Carl Sagan. I would have fucking freaked the fuck out to meet Carl Sagan. I'm a big Carl Sagan guy
Yeah.
myself.
Yeah, he's cool.
It was like when I met Neil deGrasse Tyson. I was like, holy shit, it's Neil deGrasse Tyson. I think that's like because when and this is just me because I'm a science person, and obviously we all know I'm not trying to make arguments or anything. I'm an atheist. When something happens that makes you question not your beliefs. I'm not gonna get into religious stuff. I'm talking about like you're like this can't be real. I guess is the best way to say it. Like this can't be real. And by the way, I don't think people are actually getting transported back in time to prehistoric villages either. This is a science fiction
Right.
story. But they did it authentically with Audrey, where she's kind of like, this can't be happening. Logically, this makes no sense. And at the end of the movie, you see she's gone to Cornell. She has the photo of
Yeah.
Carl Sagan where she's won awards and shit. She's logically questioning what is happening. And so I think her listening to that song in the garage, I think she's just trying to have a moment of normalcy amidst a very insane situation. That's my take on it.
It's a good take. And I think it works in a movie that spans a couple of like weeks or days. And this movie really is kind of breakneck. This movie kind of once they get transported, it's go go go, and they're literally just surviving through the movie. That's the other problem with that movie, Last House. Last House is like 5 years, and I'm not joking. Like I think it's like over 5 years of time. So they're real like in a movie like that if she steps off to go just listen to music and be a human being, I go, that makes complete sense. In this movie, it's like everybody's upstairs boarding up the windows because dinosaurs are trying to eat them. And she's like, I'm going to go in the garage and just listen to some music for a second. I'm like, I don't think this is the time. One more complaint, and then I want to get on the stuff that I actually really liked. Because again, my biggest complaint is how he wrote these kids specifically. So Brian has a crush on a new neighbor. She just came in. She's a cool kid named Jeanette, and he's got a big crush on her. And when the shit hits the fan, and now they're in dinosaur world, she's all alone. Her parents were killed or something like that, and they, of course, they do the right thing. They take her in. They go, "Come with us. We're fighting for our lives right now, but you're coming with us no matter what." And Brian, I like this part where Brian is trying to impress himself on her, and she's like completely ignoring him because they imply, very, very gently imply, that there's like a thing between Audrey and Jeanette. Like they look at each other and like, oh, I think you're kind of cute. They never say it, they never do anything. And that part of it's fine. I actually liked that dynamic where it's like he's kind of doesn't get it. But later on, in a moment that we'll get to here in a minute, when Brian should really be mourning the loss of somebody really important in his life, instead he's staring at them and angry that that they're kind of becoming close. And I was like, that makes no again in a movie that stretches out over a couple of days even. I might give you it. But in the midst of like this marathon of terror, you don't stop to go, I'm so pissed that my sister is perhaps having a lesbian romance with Jeanette. It's like this is not the time. I promise you, later it could be the time, not now.
I and this isn't me making excuses or saying like this. I just think that like for like a 12 or 13-year-old kid who thinks he's in love and he has like whatever, it's just normal behavior. And also,
But
well, here's the other thing. Also, a lot of times kids, specifically kids, and I know this from when I was studying psychology in college. kids are a lot more apt to shut off their emotions and focus on something else because they can't handle they can't handle tragedy, or they can't handle a really like traumatic situation. So they kind of shut off that part of their brain and they focus on something else. And in this case, Brian is like the loss, which we got to talk about in a second, but then focusing on something else, and that's what he can focus on to get his mind off that. To a certain extent, I understand that because that's a kid's brain. You know what I mean? It's just like I've seen movies and I've read books where like a kid will lose a parent at 13, and you know, in our heads, our adult heads, we're like, you got to be like sad and
Hmm.
traumatized, and it's like PTSD. Like, holy shit, you lost a parent when you're like 12 or 13 years old. And in books and things I've read, like a lot of kids will be like, "I'm still going to that concert, mom." And she's like, "No, you're not. Like, you're not going to a
Oh
concert."
yeah.
And they're just like, "No, I'm going." It's that I think that's part of it is just like shutting off that part of the brain of like, I can't deal with this, so let me
Yes.
focus on this. So I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying like I think that's what he was going for.
I relate to that in a big way. I lost somebody in an incredibly traumatic way when I was 14 years old. And then a few days later, I was trying to go hook up with a girl that I've been trying to hook up with for a while. But that was a few days later. The problem is, Damon, it was moments later. Let's talk about that moment though, because this is a moment and this is a positive. We're going to move into the positives now because I'm done complaining about this movie. This is where I was like, fuck yeah, guys. This is what you do in a movie like this. You don't pull your punch. You raise the stakes. You give us the attack the block moment. So they're running for their lives, and you see a little bit of it in the trailer. They're running from like I think it's like an allosaur or something like that, and you know they're kind of doing this great. David Robert Mitchell does this great action sequence where they kind of play tag by I'll chase it this way, and then you distract it and it goes that way so it doesn't kill me, and then I re-distract it, and then they get cornered by this allosaur, and the character development between Greg and Denise, Ewan McGregor and Anne Hathaway, is really good because they're a couple that's going through a divorce. Basically, they're getting ready to tell their kids we're done because Greg's had trouble with work, and Denise I think feels kind of weighed down because she wants to be an author but she wouldn't dare tell him, and so they're at their wits end. They're done. But of course, they're thrust into this situation. They have to behave as such in this situation. So when they're cornered in that moment, Greg has his hero moment, right? He's kind of been letting the family down. He's a pizza delivery guy when he really wants to be a family provider and all that stuff. And he hits, he hits the allosaur with a sledgehammer, and it knocks it over like like Mike Tyson just punched you in the face,
Well,
which was a
my
laughable moment.
actually, my favorite part before that, he takes a sledgehammer and he slams it into the fucking dinosaur's leg. And I was like, God damn, like, what a
Yes.
good move. And the dinosaur stops attacking Anne Hathaway and turns around towards him, and he just swings it up and smacks it in the head. Now, to its credit, the dinosaur falls over because I'd imagine, I don't care what you are, you give it a sledgehammer, it's going to fuck you up for a second. But to its credit, the dinosaur gets right back up again. Like, it flops over and then gets up again. But,
It's simply just a way to subvert our expectations
right.
because it's a giant dinosaur. It's not small. It's a huge dinosaur. So
Yeah.
even that sledgehammer would be like, oh, like yeah, that doesn't even feel like a dinosaur tail slap me in the face. But it knocks over. It created a big moment in the theater. We all kind of laughed at it because it was truly ridiculous. But then the dinosaur gets up and he starts to attack you and Greg, and he nips at his leg and snaps his fucking leg off, and you're like, oh shit, we're in the middle of a chase, and Greg just lost his leg, and that's a lot of blood coming out of that leg. So that's where you think it's gonna go, Damon. No, it goes harder.
Yeah, so I thought for sure when the dinosaur grabbed his leg, he was going to whip him around a little bit, and then they were going to grab the sledgehammer and hit the dinosaur again. It would drop him. Like, I was like, that's what's going to happen. Nope. He bites off the bottom half of his leg, and Greg is laying on the ground holding his bloody stump, going, ah! And then the dinosaur just goes down and fucking eats Greg. It
In
just attacked.
front of his family.
Yeah, all of them. The wife, the kids, they literally watched their father get eaten by a dinosaur. I was like, okay, okay. I did not think you were going to go there. I thought I had this figured out because it's a family film. No, Greg gets eaten by a fucking dinosaur.
And that just it impressed the hell out of me that they went there in a movie. And why I call this movie a horror movie is they don't cut away. They don't just cut away to Anne Hathaway reacting. You watch the leg get chomped clean off. You watch him on the ground screaming. Then you watch the dinosaur pick him up with its mouth and chomp on him and fucking swallow him. And then the family is just like, "What the fuck?" Like they are
Everybody's
literally,
like, what the fuck? Everybody's
yeah.
like,
I
what
mean,
the fuck?
it's the best. It's to me, it's the best moment in the movie, and
It
that's the
is.
moment where I'm like, I don't know if my 9-year-old's gonna be okay with this because
Yeah.
9-year-olds, 9-year-old boys tend to love their dads and stuff like that. So it's like, oh my god, the dad in the movie gets eaten in front of his kids. It's kind of fucked up, Dad. Why would you show me this? But it's real stakes, and I go, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. If everybody else in this neighborhood is getting picked off violently, and we've seen it happen multiple times. It's got to happen to these people, right? No, and even in Scream, it doesn't happen to the core four. It'll never happen to the core four. That can't be the thing. No, they do it. They go for it. I respect that. I really appreciated that. And then Damon, they decide to reverse that, but that's for the end. We'll talk about that at the end. But they do devise a plan they see the bright light and they realize that bright light is the same bright light that they saw the night their house moved from where it was to Dino World. So they chase that bright light to this house. They have one last great showdown, and then they jump into the light, which is what they believe a wormhole back to their home. But when they get back there, Damon, it's like their neighborhood's completely intact. And so they discover that they didn't jump back to their world. They jumped back to a parallel universe where their neighborhood hasn't been taken yet, but it's about to be. They very conveniently, it's one convenience allowed, I'll give it, I'll allow it. They very conveniently show up in their neighborhood moments before it's going to be sucked up by this thing again.
And when they do that, they realize the time. When did the thing show up? It showed up at 11:05. It's 10:45. They got like 20 minutes. Jeanette takes off because she's like, I gotta save my parents, and they're like, you're not gonna make it there and back in time. You're screwing yourself. But she takes off, and then Anne Hathaway's character says, hold on, I got an idea. And so they sit at like a bus stop. She makes a phone call on the payphone, and it doesn't take a genius to figure out what she's doing. She knows, like, her husband Greg has been hiding that he's a pizza delivery boy because he got fired from his job or got laid off like weeks ago, and this is the only way he can make money right now because he didn't get hired anywhere else yet. And so you're sitting there, and I'm like, oh yeah, she delivered a pizza. Guaranteed that's what she did, because they're outside of the zone that got taken. They're like a little bit further outside that neighborhood. Sure enough, here comes Greg driving up in his car with his little light up pizza sign. And he's like, what are you guys doing? And they all hug and they freak out because they found their dad and brought him back. And then this is the line of the movie. You get one F-bomb during a PG-13 movie. And when it first out, like when the big flash happens, this time the neighborhood disappears, but there are still like prehistoric dinosaurs that got delivered back to our world or to this parallel universe. So like they didn't see that.
There was like a switch.
Yeah, they got sent off to the other side of the world, but there was a switch. And Ewan McGregor goes, is that a fucking dinosaur? It was a perfectly timed. If you're gonna drop an F-bomb, that's the one to drop. And then then we get like the flash forward in time. It's been 2 years since the neighborhood disappeared, and there were all these prehistoric animals, and the government swooped in and saved it. And basically, it's everyone lived happily ever after, for the lack of a better word, because they got their dog back. Brian is happy doing whatever he's doing. The girl, Audrey, like I mentioned, went to Cornell. Actually, got to meet Carl Sagan, and now the wife. Why am I keep forgetting her name?
Denise.
Denise, thank you, Denise.
Yeah.
Denise finished her book, and in classic Amblin form, the book is called "The End of Oak Street," a harrowing tale of survival, whatever it's called. And she finally finished her book, and now her and Greg and the entire family are very happy. Now, I'm gonna say this before you complain, because I know you want to complain. You said one convenience. This reminds me of our conversation we talked about with a sad, dour ending versus a happy ending when it makes sense. While I do find it incredibly convenient that they went back in time just enough time to save Greg, I understood it in this instance because by the time that Greg dies, he sacrificed himself to save his family. Him and Denise have kind of started to find their way back to each other because like they're realizing that like yes, they're in a shitty situation. He lost his job. He kind of lied to her about what he was doing, all that kind of stuff, and she's never told him. Like her book that she written that Greg read at one point is like literally said she's going to leave her family and go
Yeah.
off to become an author. So like of course he's upset. But they just kind of found their way back to each other. And through this incredibly harrowing, terrifying situation, the family has grown closer to each other. Like they realize how much they love and need each other. Which is, again, that's the sweet sappiness of an Amblin movie, just like watching, the Goonies, when they finally, when they burst out of the giant pirate hole and they still have enough money to save the Goon docks and their families are all there together. Yeah, it's very sweet, sweet moment. You kind of need that kind of ending. While it is incredibly convenient, I didn't mind it because it's because that, like I said, it didn't ruin that moment when Greg gets eaten. That's still like, holy shit, I can't just watch the dude get eaten by a dinosaur. But bringing him back because like that's kind of how the movie has to end. I didn't really mind it because we're already stretching the limits of credulity when you're like an entire neighborhood gets transported back to prehistoric times. Like how the fuck does that happen? So them going back and saving Greg, I was ultimately fine with it.
I am going to resurrect something as ancient as the dinosaurs, and I'm going to resurrect the rewrite of the Living Dead. I wouldn't have got them back at such a short amount of time, right? They got 20 minutes left. I would have given them like 40 minutes or an hour or some shit. And because here's the problem with what happens in this moment is that they jumped to an alternate universe where nothing has happened yet, but it's about to. So what they're implying in the ending that we got is that she stole away Greg from his family who's down there. He comes up to deliver a pizza so they can get him back. That family gets transported to Dino Town without Greg. Now she has sentenced a version of herself and her children to fend off dinosaurs in Dinosaur Town without their proper father. She stole the proper father from this universe for them. But it tracks because Denise is not the most likable character, and neither is Greg. And I appreciate that. I don't believe that every character needs to be likable. The whole time that they're bickering and arguing throughout the entire movie, I go, both of you are kind of pieces of shit. You kind of suck, and you kind of suck. That's a really shitty thing to do that she knows down there in that neighborhood is a version of her and a version of her kids who need that man. And she stole him. She stole him for them. And I'm like, that's super fucking dark. So in my rewrite of The Living Dead, I would give him a little extra time. She'd still make the phone call. And they would have a moment. And she's going, I don't have time to explain why we're up here, but we're down there too, and we need you really hard. And I made some mistakes, and you've made some mistakes. I know you've been lying about this, and I was lying about that, and I was wrong about it, and I was wrong. Go back down there, okay? Just trust me. Things are about to get strange. They need you. Take an extra gun. I love you. That's an Amblin ending. That's the ending where you go, I just needed that last moment to tell you I love you and I appreciate you and to mend things. And you and other me down there can go fix it and fight for your lives. Or, Damon, let's get crazy here. Let's get nuts. She could call with 20 minutes to spare. Let's stick to that and go, hey, it's me. I don't have time to explain. Get me and the kids in the car and get to this address now. And then all of a sudden there's double the family. One dad, two wives. They're both Anne Hathaway. That's not a bad deal. And Audrey and Brian and Audrey and Brian. One of those things, but not the thing where you steal a dad from another family.
I mean, fuck it. You gotta steal the family. You steal your man back.
That's fucking crazy. It's borderline sociopathic.
It is, but it's kind of funny in a way. Like you have to really think about it. And then, like I said, I assume much like a lot of the like family movies of the '80s and even the '90s, like they're not thinking that deep ahead as far as like we're gonna really like suss out the tragedy of this real situation.
But
But
just tell me before you finish, just tell me another movie where someone has fucked their family that hard.
oh, I know it's pretty. I'm sure I could come up with one, but that is pretty good, I will say. But me personally, like I just like, hey, we got dad back, so fuck the other family. I don't know, but it was just funny because, like, in the end, obviously they get their happy ending. They're back together, and the family's actually happy together and everything. Like, because it is the same dude. It's not like he was an alternate universe version of Greg. He was Greg. Like, he was still Greg. It wasn't like he was a
Yeah.
Bizarro Greg or anything. So, I mean, you're right, but at the same time, like, like they're just trying to give them a happy ending, and they got it, I guess. Now, the other family, that's the sequels. When the other family comes back, they survived, and now they're coming to murder their counterparts because they stole Greg, and, it's going to be called The End of Denise Platt. That's the sequel. So, I don't
That would be a great sequel. Sign me up for that sequel.
yeah. But like I said, overall, this was a fun movie, and I don't need it to be more than that. And yes, we can always pick apart a movie, and these are easier to pick apart because they always have a couple of plot holes, a couple like that where you're like, did they realize what they actually did? But
yeah, I was with Schwink, my brother Schwink, and my editor Jerry Salcedo, and all three of us were like, did that really fucking happen? Jesus Christ.
But I think overall it was a fun movie, good performances, pretty well written. And I know this sounds like such a weird compliment, but like I said earlier, like breezy. It was an hour and 35 minutes. Didn't need to be more than that. It was fun. It was just a fun movie.
It almost sounds like we're in alternate universe Ice Cream Man, because that's also a short movie that's rather breezy and just kind of delivers on the goods. But the difference is market here. Like they're just better thrills, better setups, better direction here. I'm gonna tell you this right now, Damon. I know you're not gonna agree with me. I think the kids are written just as bad as an Ice Cream Man. That's how egregious I think the kids are written in this movie, because it just doesn't match the tone of the movie. I know you disagree with that, but overall, this is just a way better movie than Ice Cream Man. Like, I'm telling people to go see this in the theater. I'm telling people to spend their money on it. You're going to have a good time.
There's actually a story to this one that makes sense and actually you can have fun with, whereas Ice Cream Man was just a giant pile of dog shit. So, whatever.
Don't write your script with AI and maybe it'll shake out a little better.
Yeah. Patrick, let's get some categories for this one. Let's kick things off as we do each and every week on the show. Let's talk about best performance. So when it comes to the end of Oak Street, who gets your best performance?
My best performance goes to someone we have not even talked about, which is PJ Byrne. I'm a big fan of him, by the way. He's a great character actor. He's in a lot of stuff. And he plays the neighbor Mel, who fucking hates them. And Mel's kind of an asshole, actually. He's like really super impatient with them and shitty. I think he did a really good job. I personally, one of my biggest problems with this movie is the way the characters are written, and it can affect performances. A long time ago, in a universe far, far away, we used to have a category called worst performance, and we got rid of it because I realized something, and I grew, and I understood that usually I'm not looking at a bad performance. I'm looking at someone trying to perform a script that is not good. The character work in this movie, in my opinion, is not great. And so that affected, to me, Anne Hathaway's performance and Ewan McGregor's performance pretty hard. And you already know how I feel about the kids. I don't need to rehash that. So PJ Byrne, who only had a small portion of the movie, I think he killed it in that portion.
PJ Byrne is one of those like that guys. He pops up in every movie. He's in The Boys. He's in a lot of great movies. Like, I think he's hilarious in Horrible Bosses. He's just a great character actor. You know what I mean? Just great. Like,
Yeah.
I can't think of a movie that he's in that I didn't enjoy a little bit because he was in it. You know what I mean? And like in this movie, he's actually playing like a pretty big asshole, which is not generally the character. He's usually like comic, a little bit of comedy relief. In this movie, he actually plays an asshole. He's pissed off because their dog keeps getting in his backyard. He's like, I'm going to shoot your dog. And Anne Hathaway's character's like, I'm going to say this because my husband won't. If you touch my dog, I'm going to burn your house down. I was like, see, that's me. That's what I would do.
It's a very Damon Martin answer. Yes.
100%. But you're right. He was fine. In the end of the movie, like he actually because when Anne Hathaway called to get the pizza delivered, she also called all of her neighbors that she knew their numbers and told them to get out and saved them too. So, so she left her counterpart, her doppelganger. Fuck them. They're going to go back in time. But all my neighbors, they're going to be good to go.
I'll save everyone but my family.
Yeah.
What the fuck? It's so weird.
But I thought but I like that. And PJ Byrne is, like I said, he's good in everything. He's just always that guy. He's rare. I don't know if he's ever been a lead, but like when you see him, you're like, oh, I know that guy. He's great. He's
Yeah.
really good in this movie. I know you had problems with it overall, but I mean, it's hard for me not to give best performance to Anne Hathaway just because like she's so good in everything she does, and she does kind of play that fierce mama bear a little bit in this movie where she's like she has to kick into action to save her kids. And there's a scene where their entire house gets attacked by this weird like snake like creature, and she hears it attack her daughter, her son upstairs, and she fucking flips the fuck out, man. She grabs a knife and just starts stabbing
Great
the
scene.
shit out of this thing. And you're like, holy shit, man. She just goes ham. So, yeah, I think she's great in this movie. I mean, she's having a fucking year, man. Anne Hathaway, this is like the year of Hathaway.
Yeah. The only one who might be having a better year is Robert Pattinson, but Anne Hathaway's right there. That knife scene was like right out of Gremlins when the mom is like stabbing all the gremlins in the kitchen.
Yeah.
It's a fucking gnarly sick scene. I love that scene. And coincidentally, my MVP for this movie was Anne Hathaway because it's a really physical performance. And I was like, damn, she's selling the fuck out of this. She's like sprinting down the streets and she's wielding a shotgun or she's throwing something or she's constantly putting her body into the movie. And we were talking about this afterwards too. I think she's kind of compensating. She's a very accomplished actor. I think she knows when she's got a great script in front of her and when she has a good popcorn movie in front of her. She's like, okay, I'm not getting a lot to chew on character wise, so I'm going to throw everything else I have at this. And that's testament to how good of an actor she is because her physical performance in this is really good and really sells all the action. It doesn't, like, here's an example where it didn't work. In The Dark Knight Rises, where she plays Catwoman, I didn't buy 1 second of her fighting these mercenaries. It's like, she's outweighed by 150 pounds and she's like kicking their asses with the slowest karate moves you've ever seen. And you're like, yeah, that's not working. In this movie, she's like, I'm not doing that again. I'm going to show you I can throw myself into this shit.
Yeah, she's like I said, she's just an incredible actor. And like I said, she can kind of do no wrong in my eyes. My MVP is almost like it sounds like a half-hearted MVP, but I am going to give it to David Robert Mitchell for this reason, because he seems like a guy like when you think about It Follows, and then you think about like Under the Silver Lake, which I fucking hate that movie. I hate it so much.
Oh, what a fucking awful movie.
I like It Follows. I'm on the outside looking in with that one. I know that you don't like it, but I've always liked that movie. But for him to create like an entire world and make it a family movie but still make it harrowing, and yes, it's flawed. There's flaws in this movie, there's flaws in the script. But ultimately it was fun and adventurous and harrowing, which like I said, I think that's what shocked me the most. Like there were legitimately harrowing moments in this movie. Got to give credit to the script. Got to get the guy behind the script. Like I said, and this was him by himself. There's no co-writer. There's no 10 people were working on this. Like it was David Robert Mitchell. And yeah, like I know I keep using the word fun to describe this movie, and like I said, it's not perfect. It's a flawed movie. I'm not going to deny that, but sometimes I don't really care if it's fun. If you give me a fun movie that I can just sit down and enjoy, I'm cool with that. And I was just like, this sounds like such a backhanded comment. I was just legitimately shocked he pulled it off because I was like, like I really liked It Follows. It's not a perfect movie, but I still really enjoyed that. But Under the Silver Lake, I watched like a half hour of that, and I was ready to throw my TV out the window. I was so pissed off that movie sucked so bad. And so you wonder, like, was he a one hit wonder? Was he like, even if you don't like It Follows, a lot of people do like that movie.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, maybe he's just a one hit wonder. And obviously he's going back to the well now with They Follow. And I was like, maybe that's all he's got. And that's okay, by the way. I can't get one script written. This guy's got one script and one movie made that a lot of people love. So I was like, you know what, maybe this is just his one trick pony. Okay, cool. But he actually pulled it off. And like I said, I had a good time at the movies.
I would put David Robert Mitchell in the category of directors I would love to see somebody else write their scripts.
Yeah.
I found a lot of the directing to be great. I think that the structuring of sequences and set pieces to be thrilling and harrowing and have you rooting and cheering and laughing And like a lot of that stuff really works. And then I just was like, but on the flip side, you've got a script that is fighting you, that is literally fighting this movie. It's like on one side, we got a good movie, and the other side, we're desperately trying to make it bad with these really bad choices that are baked into the script. So I would love to see him tackle a new movie like this, something big, something adventurous and fun with a really great writer or writing team.
Well, I just saw Jurassic Park Rebirth needs a new director, so maybe he steps over there.
I get if he wants to stick in the dinosaur world. I mean, those movies always make $1 billion. Why don't you just go do it? If they offered me that, I would 100% take it. Even though I've long since not been a fan of Jurassic Park, but clearly he knows what he's doing, and maybe he could breathe some new life into it.
Yeah, who knows? Next category, Patrick, best scare. And like I said, there was legitimately some scary moments in this movie. So what was your best scare in The End of Oak Street?
This one really caught me by surprise, and it's like at one point they're creeping through a house. And the camera's really low and low angle on them, and then just a baby dinosaur like jumps right in front of the lens and screeches. And meanwhile, they walk past it. I mean, it's barely as big as their shoe. Like it's not a problem, but it was just one of those little trick scares that really worked and got me. So I had to give it that.
For me, it's the snake creature towards the end of the movie when it starts creeping through the house because we see
Yeah.
that thing earlier in the movie. Was it Brian? Brian runs across it. It's like in a pool, so you know it's some sort of like sea creature. And we're
Yeah.
like, what the fuck? But it literally just looks like a giant snake, and it's got like a little mouth and eyes. Like it doesn't look. It doesn't
It's like
look.
like a skink or a salamander without
It
legs, like
doesn't.
something
It
like
doesn't
that.
look dangerous. It's big, but it doesn't look dangerous. It just looks like a big, big snake. But then when it goes in the house, it's slithering through, and like they gave an excuse why no one's seeing it because like the one girl's got her headphones on, Brian's packing, so he has his back turned to the door. No one's paying attention to this fucking giant creature like slurping its way through the to the house. And then when it finally does get to Anne Hathaway and she sees it, obviously, and freaks out, it opens its mouth and it's like a fucking giant snake, teeth, like 19 rows of teeth. It looks fucking deadly. Like, oh shit. And then when it goes through and like starts attacking people, and then that's where we had that great scene with Anne Hathaway with the knife where she just stabs the shit out of it. That turned into a scary scene because when you first see it, you're like, this thing doesn't look dangerous. We know it is. We don't know to what extent. And then when it opens its mouth and it's got like 19 rows of razor sharp teeth, you're like, oh shit. And because then it starts going after people. It goes after Denise. It goes after Brian. It goes after Audrey. So I really enjoyed that scene. And like I said, it was surprising because you don't see it coming based on what we've seen out of the creature until it opens its mouth. And you're like, oh fuck.
Yeah, it's a very harrowing scene, and I called it "big fucking snake in the house" on my categories when I was taking notes. And it's a super harrowing scene. And when that mouth opens, you're like, "Oh fuck, run so fast from that thing!" Like
Yeah.
that thing is trying to kill everyone in the house. Yeah, it was a really good one.
And it's also like, fucking 40 feet long and giant. So it's not even like, you got a cobra. Like, no, 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 it's a giant snake. Um, Patrick, next category, best kill. We got the same one. We don't need to fuck around
Yeah.
with this. We know what it is. It's so good.
Oh my God. I've never seen Ewan McGregor be mauled by a dinosaur before, and I'm not mad at it. I like what I saw there because they go hard. Because they did not shy away from it. They didn't cut away to reactions or something like that and give him a gentle goodbye, where he kind of bleeds out in somebody's arms. No, he gets brutally chopped up first and then eaten. The screaming pieces of bloody Ewan McGregor get eaten by a dinosaur in front of his family. It's hard fucking core.
I don't want to repeat myself, but I'll just say, like, I did not see it coming. That's what got me. I
Yeah.
thought I knew for sure what was going to happen. And when when they first biting off the leg, I was like, oh, okay. And then literally eating it, I was like, oh my God, like they're doing it. Yeah, I didn't see that coming a mile away. Like, I'm usually pretty good at predicting, like, when people are going to die or how a scene's going to play out. They got me with this one. I was 1,000% sure he was going to grab him by the leg, thrash him around a little bit, and chuck him, and then his family was going to save him or whatever. Nope, did not happen. That dinosaur shit him out about 12 hours later.
That's it. Yeah, he's a big pile of shit somewhere in Dino
Yeah,
World.
yeah, exactly. Patrick, next category: remake, sequel, or leave it alone. This is pretty self-explanatory, but this is where we take whatever movie we're reviewing and we say, should they remake it, should they sequelize it, or should they leave it alone? I've already sequelized it, Patrick. the end of Denise Platt. Now the doppelganger family is coming back for revenge, and that is the second one. I don't know. I doubt that actually would work, but it's kind of funny. But I think you could make a sequel to this movie. Absolutely. Like I said, one of the brilliant things they do in this movie is they don't try to over-explain the wormhole. They're just theorizing, like, because the girl is a Carl Sagan fan and she's a scientist. She's like, wormholes are real, and in theory they are real. That's all they say. They never prove what it is. They never say, "Oh,
Yeah.
we figured it out. We're stuck in a black hole or some shit." No. So you could do it again, and you don't even have to have these same characters. You could have this happen in another part of the world. You know what I mean? So I think a sequel would work.
A sequel would work, but your sequel's the best one because a hardened Denise who has survived Dino World and gets jumped back into this other place where a random doppelganger of herself is with her husband would be a very interesting movie, and throw in some dinosaurs for good measure.
Yeah, why not? Why not? Next category, Patrick. Can we survive this horror film? So here we are. Our neighborhood, somehow we're living in the same neighborhood. We get taken back in time to this prehistoric place. Are you and I making it out of there?
I would say we're not, because I don't think pretty much anybody makes it out of this other than the family, because they have to, they're trying to give you a bit of a hopeful ending. But I do say this, I think we last a lot longer than most of the people in that neighborhood did, because so many of them like were just out and about or like trying to escape and shit like that. It's like, I am holding up in my fucking house. You are not, I am not stepping out into that. Once I see a dinosaur, I go, guess what, everybody? We're not leaving this house from now on. I'm boarding everything up, and we are not, it's not happening. And eventually they're going to find their way into the house and kill us, but with enough time. So long answer short, I don't survive. I just survive longer.
I kind of with you on that one. And like I said, I talked earlier about how protective I am of my dogs, and like I would never, there's no way my dogs would ever get away to the point where I have to go find them, which, I talked about the
Right.
flaw of like, but I understand that, your dog gets away and you want to find it. But I think that probably would be the end of me. Like a dinosaur would get in the house, my dogs would start barking at it. I would tell the dogs to run, and I'd be like, come on, I'm going to wrestle a fucking dinosaur right now. So yeah, I'm going to die because, like I said, I have something worth dying for. So yeah, I would die to save my dogs. And don't get me wrong. By the way, just to be clear, I would die to save my girlfriend too. I love her very much. We were just comparing the dog.
She's like, what about me, motherfucker?
Yeah, we were just comparing the dog situation earlier. I was just pulling out a point, but yes, like I am a protector. Like I'll sacrifice myself to save my dogs and my girl. So yeah, I'm not making it. I'll make it longer, kind of like what you said. We'll hang out in the house. We'll barricade the doors, but eventually it's a fucking dinosaur. It's gonna get in.
Yeah, you're not winning that one, but yeah.
Yeah. And you're not gonna I'm not gonna be able to pull off jujitsu moves against the dinosaur. I'll be like, come on, I'll put it in a fucking rear naked choke, and it just bites my face off. So
Yeah, it's not happening.
those Muay Thai leg kicks are not gonna work very well against a fucking velociraptor.
I'm not knocking out a dinosaur like Ewan McGregor does.
You throw a spinning back fist and just eat your arm. Patrick, last category, is it scary? So when it comes to the end of Oak Street, is it scary?
It is. It's a proper horror movie. I mean, it's not the most gore. It's not Evil Dead 2013. I'm just saying that it ticks the boxes of, wouldn't this be fucking scary if dinosaurs were chasing us? And the answer is yes. This movie fucking shows you how harrowing that can be.
That word right there, I've used it all night, harrowing. Like that to me is scary. I was stunned at how harrowing this movie was. Like, not to say I like went in thinking it was going to be terrible or anything. I was just like, it's a PG-13 movie with dinosaurs. They're going to make it too kiddie. That's what I thought.
Like an adventure movie. Like, okay, they're going to adventure their way out of this. No, they are running for their fucking lives from bloody-toothed dinosaurs who want to eat them and do eat some of them.
Yeah, and like the one part where they're trying to jump into the wormhole and it closes before they get there, and the one kid literally falls off like a fucking 3-story building and falls down to the ground. And like he's got dinosaurs attacking him down there, and you're like, they're not fucking around here.
Yeah, flying dinosaurs are attacking them, ground dinosaurs are attacking them, salamander dinosaurs are attacking them. They are getting inundated with things that want to eat them. That's a fucking scary movie.
Yeah, so I'm all, like I said, it was harrowing, it was scary. I'm, like I said, surprised. Not because I went in thinking this is going to be a terrible movie. I just thought I had an idea exactly what it was going to be. Just like, the scene with Ewan McGregor getting eaten. I was wrong. credit to David Robert Mitchell, credit to the folks who made this movie. You did a good job subverting my expectations, and you made a fun night at the movies.
Yes, they did.
That is our episode for this week, Patrick. As we mentioned, The End of Oak Street is in theaters right now. We would recommend going to see it. I mean, we recommend you to go see everything in the theater, but this is definitely a theater experience movie, so you should definitely go see that in the theater. As always, want to say a big thank you to everyone that tunes in the show. Make sure you check us out on all your favorite podcast platforms, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Our YouTube channel, just search Rewind of the Living Dead. You can also go to our website, rewindofthelivingdead.com. And don't forget to join our Patreon, patreon.com/Rewind of the Living Dead. We're recording this on a Thursday night. It will be up on our Patreon within a matter of hours. The rest of the world will get it next Tuesday night going into Wednesday. So you're going to get it almost a week early. You got questions, comments, movies you'd like us to review? Did you see The End of Oak Street? What did you think of it? Send us an email, rotlivingdead@gmail.com. That's livingdead@gmail.com, or you can find us on social media. Just search Rewind of the Living Dead. We are on Twitter /X. We are on Facebook, and we are on Instagram. Search for us over there. Send us a message. We'd love hearing from you guys. And you can also hit us up on our own personal social media channels. I am at Damon Martin, and you are?
At Director Patrick.
And as always, I want to say a big thank you to everyone that tunes in the show. We'll be back next week with another edition of Rewind of the Living Dead. Thanks for tuning in. We will see you then.
Peace.